started with an AI proof of concept, never been easier. Actually, sticking with a proof of concept and getting it to the point where you're creating something new and valuable that people are actually using and hopefully loving. That's the hard part. But never fear, that's what we're going to help you out with today. Hi, I'm Courtney Baker, and this is AI Know-How from Knownwell, helping you reimagine your business in the AI era. As always, I'm joined by Knownwell CEO David DeWolf, Chief Product and Technology Officer Mohan and Nordlight CEO Pete Buer. We also have a discussion with Jim Garrity about why being boring can have its advantages when figuring out when and where to apply AI in your business. But first, let's welcome Pete Buer back to break down one of the latest big stories in AI and what it may mean for you.
Pete, a new AI tool, man, how many times have I said that, was featured in the New York Post recently, claiming it can detect hidden heart disease with 77% accuracy. Sounds really interesting. What's your takeaway here, Pete?
Yeah, and I know you and I love these kinds of
Yep.
conversations, AI making the world a better place. So researchers at Columbia University and New York-Presbyterian Hospital have collaborated on an AI model that analyzes ultrasound images to detect heart conditions that would otherwise typically go unnoticed by human doctors. The AI was able to catch hidden heart issues nearly 8 out of 10 times, as you said, 77% of the time. Pretty cool. The story's cool in and of itself, but it also, I think, stands for other possibilities in other business settings across all of industry.
Yeah.
Using AI to explore all the different ways businesses can take advantage of early detection. So in financial services, for instance, spot hidden risks in your portfolios. In supply chain, identify and avoid logistics bottlenecks before they happen. And in HR, spot troubles like burnout or other forms of disengagement before they fester and turn into attrition. That list can go on and on and on. As a matter of fact, I think this is a great topic for leaders who are listening to run sessions with their ELT team or to do a leadership offsite around whatever type of business you run. There's an opportunity here. Where could early detection and the resolution of problems before they occur save us hundreds of hours or millions in operational cost? Give us significant competitive advantage in the marketplace or save our employees heartache. This seems to be a tool to enable leadership at its best. And I would love to see companies chasing this down.
Really, really interesting things. And I hope more of these stories in the health realm, but also that we can learn from over in professional service firms as well. Pete, thank you as always.
Thank you, Courtney.
Okay, let's face it, it's never been easier to spin up an AI proof of concept or try out a new tool. So how can you take whatever shiny new toy you're playing with and turn it into something that others see the value and utility of? I talked with David and Mohan about bridging the gap recently.
David, Mohan, I think the story will resonate with you. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to lay this out. Maybe you could tell me if you have any been there, done that stories. But a lot of times with maybe pilots or you're evaluating new platforms, you get going, there's lots of excitement, but it never really makes it into the operations. It kind of dies a slow, painful death. And, right now, obviously, lots of leadership teams are looking at different AI tools, platforms, lots of different things they're evaluating. Today, I want to dig into what separates the teams that excel at taking AI from an idea to actually operationalizing those things into their day-to-day business. So, first of all, before I get started, you'll have any horror stories, like a big thing that you tried, thought it was going to be great, and it just died? Is this what it did? No.
You can just see how many AI startups were founded in the last several years, and how many have survived? Right. So I don't know what the numbers are, but I'd bet that an AI startup started in 2021, probably 8 out of 10 no longer exist. Right. So you can look at it that way.
The other examples I think of, Mohan, are some of the SaaS platforms, and I've seen not necessarily the platforms themselves, but the operationalizing piece of it. I have seen multiple failures of project management like tools, like the Asanas of the world, the
Oh,
Mondays of the
yeah. That's
world.
a great one.
Everybody thinks, oh yeah, here we go, and there's like 10 days of energy, and then the whole thing just falls apart.
Nice. Yes.
Um,
That's a great one.
that's the kind that I think of when I think about major failures.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think today I'd love to help not have that. I mean, everybody has they've got one story like that, where it's like everybody was really excited until
They
they
had to
weren't.
do something or enter some data, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The data hygiene part that always messes these things up.
Oh, it's so true. So help us out. How do we make the leap with these AI evaluations to actually implementing them in our businesses that drive real business results?
Yeah, I think there is an art to this, right? So, we all know that traditionally a majority of the IT projects in an enterprise fail, or they're over budget, right? So, I always think of as being in the right details. All right, there are lots of details, but you got to choose like the right details to be in.
Hmm.
And I think it starts off with solving the right problem. If the problem didn't happen to be important enough, at some point you're gonna lose steam on it, right? So, but it's a compelling problem. You're gonna keep going, right? It really starts from there. And then from there are many other things, right? So you got to kind of build for production. You got to have a plan, because productionizing is very hard, right? So prototypes are a lot easier. So just thinking of data pipelines, thinking of data itself, like good data, right from before, having a plan for that is super important. And then there's always the thing about having a cross-functional team that's going to implement it, right? So otherwise, it just becomes a technology project that stops at the water's edge and nobody's using it. All of the rollout considerations that are super important that we work with our customers on, right? So, and you have a lot of experience in that. I'd love to hear, right? So just kind of thinking of at least these three factors. There are a couple more that I can think of that are really important from making this into a practical value.
So when I hear you stealing from Simon, we got to start with why. You got to start with why. It's got to be good, but it doesn't solve everything. It still could fail. David, what do you think?
Well, what Mohan made me think of was just the word change management, right? Change management is the problem with so many of these. And what he was touching on was some of the areas of change. It's funny you bring up Simon. I'll pivot to another thought leader. A lot of folks know Pat Lencioni for his pyramid of trust for building cohesive teams. He actually has a new model that he calls the working genius, which is about different people's personalities and strengths and how they bring those to work. I think it's actually a really interesting frame for thinking about change management too, because it starts with some people have this genius of wonder, right? They just ponder the world and they can think of things that need to be solved and need to be fixed. The next type of folk have the genius of invention. And this is actually solving the problem and looking at the pain and the problem and figuring out the how. The third type of person has a genius of discernment. And this is actually hearing an idea and being able to poke holes in it, understand it, and probe into it and help perfect it. Then there's galvanizing. This is rallying people to drive that change, right? Getting people motivated, getting the people moving. There is enablement, which is really creating all the support infrastructure and the processes and the systems so that you can execute. And then there's tenacity of just getting the work done and just driving it to completion. When I think of good change management and I think of successful implementations, I think you need every single one of those geniuses. And so whether you're talking about the team you assemble that should have some representation of all of that, or you're talking about the different focal points of your project plan, I think you can use that model to think about, are we really considering all aspects of what it's going to take to do successful change management? And where I've seen these rollouts be unsuccessful is where you're missing one or more of those. And it just never comes to be because maybe you don't have any galvanization in there. And so there's just no momentum created. Maybe you have no tenacity. There's nobody driving it to completion, right? Maybe you never thought about the problem. And so you just have a solution for the solution's sake, right? Whatever it is, if you're missing a component, it's going to stall. It's going to fail.
And you would say people with galvanizing are like the top, that best people?
Oh, thank you for that. There is no best, Courtney. Come on.
I know. All jokes aside, really interesting to think through. I mean, I don't think we think about that very often when we are rolling out something like this, the personalities that it really takes to get something all the way from idea, those early stages of excitement, evaluation, to it changing the way people work day in and day out. And that's when you know, the real gold happens. But that is hard. It's hard. I mean, I think we all acknowledge that it's difficult.
Yeah. Let me bring in another famous author here who wrote on product mindset. Right? You have to treat these AI projects as a product, that they have real users and there are real stakes in using it. Right? So that's when, there's a built-in incentive to make this successful because it's going to be useful for somebody. Right? So treating it as a product, aligning the incentives in an organization, and then solving just the right problem. To me, kind of that forms a nice triangle to think about this.
We're talking broadly about change management here and software and that everything. But I think one of the risks with AI is we often think of AI as the easy button, right? It does so much for us autonomously, right? This agentic world that is starting to appear and we're starting to experiment with more. We have these huge expectations. What we forget is those expectations in many cases run directly contradictory to the way we've always done things. And so while the technology may be there to be able to use it to accomplish things in new ways that totally change the world and are easy, actually integrating that with people and getting our behavior to change, I think is an even bigger lift than it has been historically, because this is a bigger order of magnitude change than we've probably ever experienced before.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. If you kind of think about what is the actual product here, right? Is it the model? Is it the UI? What is the actual product? I'd say that the workflow integration, where the tool is working with the humans, with your team members, that is the actual product. The workflow integration is the hardest part of the whole equation here. And if you can focus on that right from the beginning, it's going to not just be a POC, and it's going to go into production.
Yeah, the worst case scenario is your company lays out all this money, you're in a year-long contract, and no one is using the platform. I mean, that's worst case scenario. I think exactly what you say, Mohan, is in some ways, obviously, you got to start with why, but you also have to, what's the end result that we want to happen, and work our way backwards from that. David, Mohan, really great conversation, hopefully for everybody listening. Really some helpful things to think about as they roll out new technology with their teams.
Go make it happen.
We talk a lot on this show about how you can use AI in your professional services business. Do you want the playbook for scaling and growing your service company in this AI era? Good news. You can download our brand new white paper for AI-powered strategies for scaling professional services. Grab it now at knownwell.com/scaling white paper. Jim Garrity is the Chief Client Officer at SingleStone, where he and his team work with companies in financial services, insurance, and other public sector industries to develop strategic AI data-driven solutions. He sat down with Pete Buer recently to talk about SingleStone's boring framework for AI and more.
So, Jim, welcome to the AI Know-How podcast. We're so glad to have you on board.
Thanks, Pete. Great to be here.
For a little bit of context so that we can get into it, could you provide a little bit of background on SingleStone, your role, and then to the theme of the podcast, where AI fits in?
We are SingleStone. We're a human experience and technology company that focuses on people. We study people and we respond with the best architecture, technology, or data solution. And that takes shape in a few different ways. But we've been around a while, 27 years of consulting, based in Richmond, Virginia. I'm a chief client officer, so I work with our customers. I love being with our customers and figuring out what the next problem to solve is. And I kind of grew up through agile project delivery, listening to needs, understanding what problems they're really trying to solve, and thought of myself as kind of an activist scrum master, right? Facilitating and servant leading on teams, but then always trying to really think broadly about the business purpose and the outcome and how it affects people on the other side, the teams that are using the software, building the software, and then connecting all those dots. And so that led me to customer relationship management and then moved me along to a business development role. So I think of myself as a business analyst who gets to sit with executives and think about what's next.
We at Knownwell love ourselves a good framework,
Sure.
but I understand that yours is boring, which, of course. So tell us about it. Tell us about the boring framework and how it works.
Yeah, great question. Boring is good. And that's what we kind of stumbled upon as the hype curve of AI, which we're thinking about AI a ton at SingleStone. We're real progressive in the way we work, the way we think, the way we help our clients think. But as people get into the AI conversation, there's so much fear, uncertainty, and doubt and concern about what does this mean for me? What does this mean for the future? I watched The Matrix the other day with my kids, and it was like, there's a lot of years ago, and they're kind of anticipating a world where AI kind of takes over. So rightly so, right? It's a scary proposition. But what the hype curve has done for us is it's opened up this reality that like, hey, like fairly rudimentary automation that maybe we could do a bunch of years ago is now widely on the table, and everybody is expecting it to be true. Expecting it to be there, expecting it just to work. And so the consumer expectations have changed again. The speed of change has changed again. I think we're in the most uncertain era we've ever been in. And so what can we anchor back to, I think, is this idea of like, can we reduce toil in our business by going after the boring stuff? And so what does boring mean? Well, it's an acrostic. Business valuable, operationally important, repetitive, integral, navigational, and integral meaning kind of core to the business, right? It needs to be close to the core. Navigational, this is my favorite one. Kind of when we're introducing AI, there's all this concern about hallucination and what if it's wrong. Like our expectation for humans being right versus our expectation for machines being right. I don't think there's parity there. But this idea of if the machine could be asked to be directionally correct and help us be better, 68% rather than 63%. There's a lot of latitude there to like pick up the stuff that we can be confident in and let the stuff where we're less confident fade away. So navigational, like directional. And then lastly, growth enabling. Is it actually at a leverage point in your business? And if it is, then that's the kind of use case we should go after. So we want boring things, and we think there's a lot of money and a lot of value for customers in the boring stuff.
I get it conceptually at the frame level. Can you make it a little more sort of real with a couple examples of how you've used the framework with clients and what conclusions they've come to?
Yeah, well, I spend a lot of my time in the insurance space thinking about insurance, and Richmond is uniquely situated in the they call themselves InsurTech's Fertile Crescent for excess and surplus insurance, or some mouthful. I think there's a better way to say that, but some of the weird insurances have kind of a big presence here, and so stuff that as consumers we may never have heard of, but there's all this insurance being written on the what they call the non-admitted market, where there's like no rules, the government doesn't have a lot of involvement, but somebody's bearing the risk for kind of these kind of complex things. Markel's here in town, James Rivers here in town, Richmond National's here in town, Kinsale's here in town, like market leaders in the specialty and E&S zone. And a lot of those submissions, when somebody's like, I need insurance, right? For you as a consumer, you go online and like, say I need homeowners insurance, and it's fairly homogenous. How big's your house? Whatever. Boop. For these, it's like we need to know a lot about the risk. What are you actually asking us to underwrite? And so there's a lot of back and forth. There's the submissions come in as like bundles of information from another business, right? It's kind of a B2B to B to C maybe, or a B2B to B2B kind of transfer. And so this big dump of information gets handed off, and you're asked as an underwriter and E&S business to like, consume all that, make sense out of it. And then write the risk. Meanwhile, that market's growing, and so there's a lot of movement there. There's a lot more risks coming through, and so there's a lot of toil in that work that and speed matters. How quick they can turn around a quote matters a lot. And so a lot of quotes fall on the floor. They don't actually ever get responded to. The fastest in the market is responding to everything, but only binding a small proportion of what comes across. So there's a lot there. And the opportunity for AI is just the interpreter thing. Can I interpret this bundle of information so that a human doesn't have to be just trying to interpret it? And I don't know. I mean, all the quality metrics you might find in those businesses say like they do it really well. I just don't believe it. How many, and I don't have facts on this, but like how much information just slips through? Like, oops, we missed this thing. Oop, my perspective on this thing was different from that underwriter's perspective or that triage agent's perspective. And so like the actual info that gets kind of crystallized is not homogenous, whatever. And then it's also slow. And so entering in there with a partner of ours, we've kind of looked at an opportunity to help play in that zone with a series of little bots that can do email ingest and just kind of suck that information from email, that can structure that information in a meaningful way, that can then start to find insights in that submission flow. What are the different kinds of submissions that are coming in, and are we choosing not to write certain ones? And so kind of a series of little jobs that these AI bots can kind of run. And it's not, the coolest work in the world, but it's core to the business. If you ask, like, where does the money get made in insurance? It's like in the underwriters, on the underwriter's desk. And so this is a zone where we think there's like a ripe opportunity, and we've gotten to go and play with some email ingest, some like sucking in files and just making sense out of them. With some AI, some traditional techniques, some straight up brute force software engineering, but the appetite is so real that we've been able to run right after the boring stuff.
That's cool. And it would be probably superficial to interpret the impact as just speed and efficiency, because it sounds like the result also is insight and better decisions, and right?
Yeah, right. So the ultimate play is growth.
Right.
Right. And growth comes in a couple of ways, right? They're like the cost savings is like in insurance, it's like really just not the play. Like you can start an insurance company right now with like a smart person, some capital, and an Excel spreadsheet. Like it's 2025 and you can still run the play. What you can't do is intelligently grow. You can't capture new markets that you can't find, like grow hypotheses, figure out new partnerships that maybe are like a little bit less obvious. And so those are the things that this intelligence will help them do, and just create kind of these feedback loops of like business development. And maybe we bind 6 out of 10 as opposed to binding 2 out of 10. Like what a world that would be. So there's direct growth, and then there's kind of indirect growth.
Let's shift gears a little bit and just talk about the services business in general. I know from some of your prep conversations with the team that you've got some strong views on client retention.
Yeah.
There was a reference that you made to the awful moment where revenue goes from millions to zero. What makes retention so hard to anticipate in professional services consulting?
It's a really good question. For us, I think it's been two main things. I think it's a little bit by design, is like where we are a capacity play for people as a professional service capabilities organization. We're not close enough to the core. we are an augmentation extension of them. And so if you think about when they need to scale back or tighten the wallet or hold up or pause, where do they go first? They're going to say, hey, external partners, pause. And then, hey, internal partners, pause. And so they're going to, retain their people first. And so kind of by design, like we sometimes our staff augmentation, we are an extension of them and we know we're the first to go.
Yep.
Trouble is, you're the first to go. And so you get the indication when you get the phone call saying, hey, we got to pause a thing. So that's one. The other is a fairly small organization. We just don't do that many deals. And so we're about, 75 to 100, kind of we ebb and flow a little bit in our scale of people. And so the total number of deals per year is just not like it's in the hundreds of deals. It's not in the thousands or the tens of thousands of deals. And so each deal is very material to the total revenue for the year. And so how we are situated, not our situation, but how we are situated in an account is we're working with one particular buyer at a Fortune 500 company, one line business head or somebody. And we don't have kind of like, if we're in that situation, we're always so like thankful to be there and like, have this great opportunity to be there. But landing and expanding doesn't happen by accident. It's not like we magically end up with like 3 to 5 projects across multiple lines of business in a diversified kind of way. And so we sometimes will have one buyer at a big account and then something changes or that project ends. I mean, maybe it's not even like there's like an externality. It's like that project ends. We do the next phase of it. They're like, great. Like the other day, we got a call that said, hey, great project. They were like, Jim, great project. We are going to call it a win. We need that feather in our cap. We're taking it to the board. Like, well done. And we're not going to do anything else with this for a while. Like, okay, like that's a great version of we're done here for now. But it's the same result
Right.
from a professional services flow business is like, ooh, like what's next? What's the next thing? And we don't want to just entrench and be like the lock-in partner. But we know these places have tons of humans, tons of legacy technology, tons of challenges, tons of opportunity. And so we know that there's value to us being there. And so when we end up single-threaded, 1 and done, or 3 and done, or 5 and done, it's like, ugh. And it's often that single-threadedness that gets us where we don't have enough kind of parallel tracks going on.
And are there lessons from your experience for other professional services leaders as they think about looking for indicators or taking operational approaches to maintain retention, head attrition off at the pass?
Yeah, I think one lesson is just never assume that your name is going to just never assume you're famous, right? Like you're
You did, Matthews.
we're just all we just are nobody's famous, right? Like these companies are huge and vast, and I think that's what I keep reinforcing with my own team and my own self constantly. Say if I think that like there's no more places to hunt or no more revenue to be generated or no more value to be added at a Fortune 1000 account, I'm insane. I'm absolutely insane to believe that. And so like, and not just insane, but I'm also wrong. And so if I'm wrong, okay, where is that? And who is it? And my name isn't going to just get referred by accident. Like it takes real work. And I think real asks, we ask for warm introductions all the time. All the time. Like not like when a project goes well, but like all the time, but intelligently. Hey, I noticed that, Dominic is doing this initiative over here, and Dominic seems like a kind of guy who, makes waves wherever he goes. Dominic, Joanna, we helped you. Can you, introduce me? Can the three of us get like, it just like the very like referral based relational warm intro request is like the bread and butter of how we nurture and go. We used to laugh at ourselves too, thinking like our strategy around, our client leaves their company, goes to another company, and we end up doing work with them, that was like a bad strategy. Well, it's like, no, it can't be your only strategy, but it's like, it's certainly part of the strategy. If that trust is real, like that's very much, that kind of continuity is also very valuable. And so the lesson learned, I think, is just like, you can't believe that anything just magically happens. And it takes real work, but also people know what value looks like. People know what it feels like to work with good people. And so like whenever I ask for a referral, like most of the time, folks say, yeah, like, yeah, sure. Like help me do it. But like, let's make that introduction.
Insane and wrong. Like talk about the wrong or a bad cell in the foursquare to be in. How about is AI our friend in this process?
Is AI our friend? You mean in terms of like interpreting, like in anticipating churn? Can we see when?
Anticipating churn, identifying growth opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it totally is. I think, are we doing anything like fancy pants at SingleStone to figure that out? And not really. We're working with a couple of customers working on it who have a significantly larger volume. And some hypotheses of like, kind of like bringing it to us as a data problem, saying like, we have tons of data and we think there's signal in the noise. Can you help us find it? We have some hypotheses where to look. Like, can we get some predictive analytics here? At our smaller volume of deals, and then the question of like, what is our leading indicator that can kind of signal things? We don't really, but I mean, I'd be curious. I mean, you guys are the pros on B2B, how to interpret B2B signals. So, what would you say to a company or?
Yeah. I think I would say AI is our friend.
Yep.
Our platform crawls through structured and unstructured data inside the organization, in the news, and works backwards from an understanding of how the business runs and what your historical retention and growth drivers have been to draw inference and proactively identify either risks or growth opportunities and feed that to your client management team
Mm-hmm.
on a daily, like it's even faster than daily now basis. So kind of always having at their fingertips the very best information that they can have about the organization and its sprawl and all the points of contact and all the sources of input that one person couldn't ever possibly keep track of themselves in a prompted recommendation sort of fashion. So yeah, that's where we're making our bread and butter, I guess.
Yeah, no, for real. What I love about that description, and you hit on it with the insurance example earlier, is it's not just finding the downside uncertainty of these guys might turn out. It's finding the upside uncertainty of, hey, there might be more here based on the same signals, based on the same kinds of movements.
I know we're getting close on time, so I've got one more question for you.
I'm talking with you.
Look into the crystal ball and tell me, how is AI going to reshape consulting and client retention, and what should companies do to get their acts together?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to reshape everything. So no matter where people are, I think where any listeners are on like your comfort level with it, like I think it's going to reshape societies. It's going to reshape kind of constructs. It's going to reshape business. It's going to reshape the way we do trade. Like it's going to change everything. And it's not because it's like some like magic tool. Like the little magic emoji it's so cool that they got a lock on the magic emoji. But like it's not magic. But like I like the analogy of like the bicycle isn't, people aren't making gajillion dollars selling bikes, but the bicycle transforms society, right? Like I live on a cul-de-sac because the automobile transformed society, right? Like the internet, when it was 56K and squeaky, I was like, this thing is never going to catch on. This thing's stupid. It's too slow. Nobody's going to, and it's transformed society, right? Like here we are again. Like it's not that AI is going to solve the problems. AI is just going to change everything. And so, yeah, is it going to change the way we anticipate what's coming? I think for sure. And I think like efficient, you called it out, is it an efficiency play or is it a growth play? I think it's more like an effectiveness play all over the place. Like, how do we just be more effective? And so, as a personal B2B complex salesperson, how do I be more personal, smarter, more prepared, more empathetic, like more thoughtful? And like, my brain is not that big. And so if I have my own analyst and my own advisor and my own sounding board and it's all my little robot, I mean, that's just the LLM side, like wide open. That's not even sophisticated kind of like knit together tooling. So I think it's going to change everything. And so I think people should just I encourage folks to just be way more open-minded about like, it's not good or bad, it just is. And now what happens next? Yeah.
Let's put a pin in it there. I have a feeling maybe we'll connect again one time
So,
to speak again. It's been a pleasure, Jim. Thank you for being here.
Pete, thanks for having me.
Thanks as always for listening and watching. Don't forget to give us a review on your podcast player of choice. And hey, if you don't mind, send this podcast to somebody you know will enjoy it. At the end of every episode, we like to ask one of our AI friends to weigh in on the topic at hand. So, hey, Claude, today we're talking about making the leap from AI proof of concept to an AI product. I understand you're a really good coder, which is why I'm coming to you for advice. Any recommendations?
The jump from proof of concept to production means solving reliability, scalability, and edge cases your demo never encountered. Focus early on monitoring and fallbacks because AI models fail in unexpected ways with real user data.
And now you're in the know. Thanks as always for listening. We'll see you next week with more AI applications, discussions, and experts. Hey, if you made it this far in the episode, first of all, thank you. And second, we know that AI is changing all the time, and so we've got you covered. Here is another great episode for you to watch to stay in the loop on what's happening in AI and business. And second of all, we'd love for you to subscribe. You can do that right here. I've always wanted to do that, by the way. So do that now. That would be great.